There's a very specific kind of quiet that happens in your car after you leave your parents' house. Not the peaceful quiet, but the kind where you are replaying the last hour, looking for the moment that you did something wrong, because something in that house always turns out to be your fault by the time you get in your car to leave. I'm Cheryl, a national board certified forensic mental health evaluator and licensed psychotherapist. And I want to show you what this looks like when there is absolutely no room to argue about intent. This isn't a parent having a bad week, not someone parenting from an old wound that they haven't gotten around to healing yet. This is what it looks like when a closed system is built and maintained on purpose. A mother who reads her adult daughter's text messages, not once, but as a standing rule, because she is the one who pays for the phone, she pays for the phone plan. And because of that, she says it gives her the right to be in the phone and reading all the messages and getting on the social media of an adult woman. The daughter cannot take a job across town because the mother needs her to be close. And every time she brings up moving, the conversation ends in her mother becoming physically ill for days. And that illness mysteriously resolves itself the moment the moving plan stops being talked about and disappears. Another is a daughter who has exactly one single friend that mom or dad approves of, because every other friendship gets picked apart, criticized, and eventually made so uncomfortable to maintain that it dies out on its own. And when this person pushes back and says, I'm tired of asking permission to have a life and be an actual adult, mom didn't yell. Mom actually didn't say anything at all. She went cold and silent for 11 days, speaking to everyone in the family except for her, until she, the adult daughter, apologized for something that she never even actually did wrong. So let's just look at how fast that conversation turned. She brings something up that actually hurts her and bothers her. She wants to be her own independent person. And within minutes, somehow she's the one apologizing. That's reversal in the entire mechanism. It is not an accident and it is not a coincidence. That happens every single time. It's a skill built over years, and it is aimed at her specifically because it works on her specifically. If there are other people in the home, there will be specific things to that specific person. And there's so many of them that I can't cover all of them because we'd be here for probably 60 plus hours. So we're going to work with what we've got, which is what I've given you. So let me tell you what that does to a person from the inside, because the pattern alone doesn't explain what it's costing internally. A nervous system raised inside of a closed system like that learns to treat its own instincts as unreliable, not because the instincts are ever wrong. They're usually exactly right, but because right got punished so consistently that being right stopped feeling safe. And that's why so many adults who grew up this way describe a very strange and specific exhaustion right before they're about to advocate for themselves. And that doesn't matter where they're advocating. It could be at work, at school, the doctor's office, at home, with the parents. It doesn't matter. Whenever they are called to advocate for themselves, this kind of exhaustion will show up. It's kind of like a preemptive tiredness, like some part of them already knows how the conversation ends before it even began. And that can be a very accurate description based on a lifetime of data. However, if it only applies with mom or with dad or auntie or whoever, and it doesn't apply at work, that's still going to show up because that is what your body is used to doing. It is used to preparing to be told that something is wrong with you or why I'm allowed to control you or treat you this way, even if that's not what actually happens. Because sometimes you have a really cool boss or a really cool doctor who's going to listen to you, but it still doesn't stop the body from preparing because that's what bodies do when they have been trained that this is how things end. It also explains something that confuses people from the outside, why someone stays in contact with a parent who treats them that way. It's not that the person is naive, it's that their system was never built to have an obvious exit. They don't know how to get out, they don't know how to change it because the exit has never existed. Every single door gets quietly locked before you even reach for the handle to try to open it. There's usually financial dependence, the only approved friendship, guilt that comes with an 11-day expiration date that only ends once you apologize and say sorry. Staying is often what it looks like to be trapped by something that was engineered so specifically that leaving would feel devastating, like it would cost too much. There's years of programming and guilt behind this, and it's all been stacked up. And then there's the retelling of the history. At every holiday, at every family gathering, the same exact stories get told, the same version of the past. And every sharp move that the parent made gets taken out, it's removed. You grow up watching your own memory get overwritten in real time by people who were supposedly there with you but experience something completely different. And sometimes that does happen. However, when we are talking about what I started with in the beginning, the parent who takes the phone, who doesn't want you to move, becomes ill, ignores you, that's not a difference of perspective. That is a family that controls the narrative and they control it so tightly that it becomes its own form of gaslighting, one that doesn't require raising a voice, just repetition and time. And not every difficult parent is this. Parents are people too, and they make mistakes. They carry their own unresolved history into yours. And a lot of them do the hard work, the humbling work that causes actual internal change and an ability to see where they have made mistakes. And when they have that, they can attempt to restore a relationship and try to earn trust. Those are not the parents that I'm talking about because a hard relationship with a parent is not automatically abuse. What I'm describing is a pattern. It is not a single bad conversation or a rough season that somebody had. If you came here as a parent wondering whether something you've done shows up in what I just described, that's a different conversation and it deserves its own space rather than being fit into this episode. My next video in this series is going to speak directly to that. So if any part of what you just heard describes something that you've lived, I've got 3 questions for you to sit with. You can do them on your own, you can do them with a friend, with a therapist, whatever you feel comfortable doing. So question 1, when you disagree with your parent, who ends up apologizing by the end of the conversation? And how many times has it happened? Question number 2, is there a version of you that only exists around your family? A quieter, smaller, more careful version of you than who you are everywhere else in the world? And if the answer is yes, what does that version have to do to stay safe? Like, why does that version have to shrink? What is it doing? What are you trying to protect? What's happening in there that you're trying to protect? Okay? And if you can't answer any of these questions, that's fine. Something just because I'm asking a question doesn't mean that the information is going to be accessible right now. And sometimes having somebody else to talk this through with will help because these are pretty vulnerable questions. All right. So, question number three: if leaving this relationship, even partially, would cost something specific, money, your only approved friendship, your place in the family, what is that cost actually protecting, you or them? Because you don't know anyone, a relationship that requires you to stay quiet, to keep it. That's not a family, that's a transaction, and you've been paying into that your whole entire life. So, like I always say, you didn't imagine it, you named it. The things that you have lived through changed the lens, not your worth. If this described something that you've lived through, share it with one person who would understand exactly what you mean without having to explain it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave me a comment. You know the comment rules. If this is your first time here, try not to leave anything too personal. We can't control who reads it and who's going to comment on it. And not everybody on this platform is kind, as we have seen based on prior comments. I've got the rest of the series coming for you later this week. The next video is what it looks like when your partner is coercively controlling you. And that is the entire anchor of this series. I will see you then. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all. And that's what I've got. See you next time.